So we've got all of our details in for sedimentary rocks. Now we're starting to think about, well, what do these rocks look like? What clues do they have to tell me about the environments that they formed in? And that's really what our first part was about, was formation. So we mostly focused on this idea of clastic sedimentary rocks made up of these little pieces or sediments. And the way that those happen or are formed is we first need to create those little sediments through weathering and erosion. Wind, water, ice, all those things can break down the rock, and over time, those rocks then, those new pieces get deposited in some type of water environment and eventually get cemented and compacted together. So over time, pressure increases, they pile up, more pushing down solidifies these layers with like a cement or a glue in between. And so all of those things are happening in either a continental, traditional, transitional, or marine environment. So what we want to do is look at some of our rocks in our room today and think about, well, if these are the sediments that I'm seeing found in the rock, this must be the environment that the rock is forming in. Or these form in this environment, these in this environment. So when we make our observations today, that's one thing we're going to be looking at, is what are the sediments in this rock? What is it composed of? And that will be able to lead me to what environment's in, and then I should be able to fill in the rock types involved here. So I think you already did this one in class, but I'm just going to go back through it again. Our idea of conglomerate, we made some observations of how the rock looks, right? Thinking about more than just its size or its shape, but really what color is it? What grains does it have in it? What are the details that we can see? So looking at this rock, we just going to put it up on our screen here. So looking at this rock, we can kind of see what it's composed of. We've got different sizes going on, right? We've got some kind of smaller pieces, a little bigger pieces, some medium, some kind of whitish, maybe more milky versus a little bit clear. So this is kind of what we're looking at on this conglomerate rock. So we could write in something like its coloring, so it's kind of a brownish yellow. It's got a variety of different grain sizes in there. That's what we're really looking at here. So observations, we could say it's like a brownish yellow. Variety of pebbles. And then when I look at the sediments, I'm referring back to my picture up here. So can I tell if this is made mostly of pebbles and sand, shells and minerals, or mud and clay? I want it to fit into one of those categories. And from our description, we said we know this is our sediment type that we're mostly seeing. So this is a sand and pebbles composition. So what environment did this form in then? Well, if I know pebbles and sand are what it's made of, I'm looking at the environments up here, and my pebbles and sand are typically found in this beach environment, or near the shore, where the currents are a little stronger to move those bigger pieces of rock. Finally, process of formation, we're thinking about the steps to make this rock. And so most of ours are going to be steps 2 and 3. So I already have the sediment, so I don't need to talk about weathering and erosion, but they were first deposited in that environment. Over time, they compacted and then became cemented to form the rock we see today in our hand. So that's how I do my observations. Here, I'm taking that information now, all the details about it, and put it into a sentence describing how that rock, the conglomerate in our hand, became the rock that we see today. So I want to start with really what it's made of. So I've got sand and pebbles. That's the composition. I want to list out the environment, beach environment. So I kind of started here, step 1, sediments, step 2, environment, and then how they formed. I'm going back to my 3 steps. Deposited, compacted, and cemented. And then I wrap back up with what my rock type is. To form the rock type, conglomerate. So I took all the details that I worked out up here, my observations, and I put it into that sentence. Made of these sediments, in this environment, went through these formation steps, and now I have the rock that we see today. So you can use that as a guide when I ask you about histories later. So here's what we're thinking for rock types. I'm just going to show each one under the camera, give you kind of a little description, and then you can pause and fill in each of your charts. So I'm not going to come back to this chart. That's going to be you filling it in with the details, and once you have all the details, you should be able to then fill in, like I'm mentioning here, fill in the names of the rocks below. So like conglomerate that we just figured out is pebbles and sand, we could fill that in right here. And there should be one more then coming your way here. So all the rocks seen in the lab should be able to fill in on the line. And then the final summary question is write your own history for any 2 rocks. Just like we did up top, look back at those numbers. We start with first the sediment, then the environment, give the formation, and then wrap up with the rock type. So I'm going to go here first. I'll try to go in order. Let's see, sandstone, breccia, shale, okay. So here's the first one, sandstone. So you can be writing down observations of color, any patterns that we see on it. Thinking about the grains, this one is called sandstone, so that should be a pretty good clue. So you're recording observations, and then you can pause and get in the sediments and the environment. Here's our next one. This one's called breccia. So we're looking at color. We can give any observations about the grains that we can see or the pieces that the rock is made of. Get back to this side. Again, we're not commenting on its shape or like its size, but we're just looking at essentially what we see inside. Are there any patterns? What colors? Or in this one, variety of colors. So then this is where you pause and fill out your sediments, environment, and formations. Here's the next one. This is called shale. It's pretty soft, like I can dig my fingernail into it. If we look at it from the side, there's some slight layers. And then you're pausing, putting in your sediments, Here's the next one, shell limestone, or just limestone, I think, on your sheet. So color, what do you see? Pause it, get your sediments in. Environment. And here's our last one. This one's my favorite. Coquina. It's very strong, like I can't dig my nail in this one. Kind of see some layering in here. Looking at the sediments, we can see what it's made of. Definitely not rocks. Just all these little shells crunched together. So this is a good time to pause, record your sediments, your environment. So you can go back, pause, check out any of those other ones that you need to, and they're obviously available in the classroom too. So you've got all your details recorded in your table. Shoot me any questions that you have.